Eskom workers are demanding a 15% wage increase and are threatening to strike if their needs are not met. Now, the unions representing Eskom workers and the power utility have reached a dead end in their wage negotiations. Eskom has stated that there will be a 0% increase this year. Sikonathi Mantshantsha, who is the deputy editor of the Financial Mail, who is with us this morning, has said that in order for the power utility to survive, it needs to cut at least 33% of its workforce who were unsuccessfully and unnecessarily employed over the last couple of years, and that wage increments should also be frozen. And also with us this morning is General Secretary of the South African Federation of Trade Unions, SAFTU, Zwelinzima, Vavi. Gentlemen, good morning to you. And I'm going to start with you, Sikonathi. So you are saying that the union should be careful with their demands at this stage because it could lead to further job losses further down the line if they are not.
Let's correct one thing though, Sakina. I said Eskom should be cutting 40% of its employees.
So even more, not 33?
33%. That's the chairman of Eskom who said they are 33% overstaffed. I think that's a bit conservative still. The company can only carry about 32,000 people, not the 48,000 that work there at the moment.
So what are you basing that on?
The finances as a start, but it's production. In 2006, the same amount of workers produced 209,000 gigawatts of electricity. In 2017 March, they are only producing 3% more, 217,000 gigawatts, which tells you 47,568 people that are employed at Eskom today are doing exactly the same work that was being conducted by 31,458 people as at March 2006, 12 years ago. So what are these people doing? And let's clear one thing. They are not building the power stations. The contractors hired by Eskom, which means additional workers, are building the power stations. So what are these? What are the 16,110 extra people doing at Eskom if Eskom is still producing exactly the same amount of power it produced 12 years ago, yet it cannot even afford to pay them? So
before I get to Mr. Vavi, you say these additional workers have been unnecessarily employed by Eskom. Firstly, what would lead to such a situation? And secondly, how is this now their problem? That they were employed is not their fault. So why aren't they due for an increase?
What should lead to that? That would be us veering in speculation. But we know exactly that the whole economy has not been creating jobs outside of the government. The government has taken it upon itself to create jobs. These numbers that I'm giving you are published by Eskom itself, audited numbers. Whether or not they're audited by KPMG is another story. Now, why should it be their fault? Absolutely not their fault that they were hired, but it's the company's responsibility to fix the situation so that it may be able to better serve its customers and release industry, private industry, whose job it is to employ people, to create these jobs and lower the cost of doing business. The main cost at this point is producing energy. Your electricity bill, what you pay now, it costs you 5 times more than you did in 2006 to buy electricity. And that whole cost has been absorbed by staff salaries. It's not money going into investments. It's money going to pay salaries of the extra 16,110 people.
Mr. Vavi, Mr. Mantshantsha is saying that if you are not careful with the demands that you are putting on the table, your workers, your members, union members will walk away even more impoverished.
The fundamental mistake that Mr. Mantshantsha is making is to do an oversimplified exercise of just comparing the head counts of staff with the gigawatts per hour produced by Eskom in 2006 and 2008, and then make an oversimplified statement that there is an overstaffing in the period. It's a mistake that I think has been made by the World Bank, which have done a benchmark study comparing many countries with South Africa, a South Africa that have its own complexities, For example, that study that he is relying on will not tell us that from 2006, which is the year that they use as their benchmarking year, Eskom built many substations and many new lines. And those new substations and new lines require maintenance and require warm bodies to maintain. That's the first point. The second point is that Eskom was not built in 2006. This is a company that have decades and decades of history. During the dark days of apartheid, 66,000, now I'm talking in the 1990s, 66,000 workers were employed in Eskom. So this idea that in 2006 there should have been this amount of numbers of workers does not take into consideration that actually as we were closing the apartheid era, there were 66,000, and the board at the time had felt that they must increase the numbers to 72,000. That's what we inherited from apartheid. Those were the numbers. And now let's look at the facts. With those numbers, Eskom was producing the cheapest electricity in the world. Now, he has just made a statement that the cost to the South African public have been escalating even though there was a dramatic reduction of the numbers through the programs of commercialization or producing electricity for profits, which is then what have created the havoc that we are now engaging with. That's the first point that we wanted to make. Any suggestion, Sakina, that workers must now pay by losing up to 40% of the workforce because of some World Bank study is actually a declaration of war on us, the workers in Eskom, and I believe in this economy. We cannot afford one more job loss as a result of whatever formula that have been used. And
but
secondly,
do you agree
we are not discussing the real issue. The real issue is that Eskom have been run down by a government.
We can come to that.
Okay, fine.
Do you agree or do you not agree that Eskom staff complement is over and above what it needs at the moment?
Look, let's look at the challenge that Eskom is facing. If you go to every township in South Africa today, you see floodlights. The street lights have long been switched off. The floodlights have become the flowers. I mean, the street lights have become the flowers that do not function. The challenge to Eskom to ensure that it takes forward its developmental challenge of ensuring that there is electrification of the black residential areas and that the mushrooming informal settlements, which are the centers of crime in this country, are also electrified in order to take a demonstrable action against the high rates of crime. It's a huge issue.
But it's a separate point.
And that's what I think that the study does not consider.
Is Eskom overstaffed at the moment?
It is not. It is not. I've just made you a comparison. At the time when Eskom was serving even smaller numbers of the population, it had 66,000. It had an ambition to grow to 72,000 workers. At the time when its mandate have completely changed to service 55 million South Africans, it is now having a far lesser number than that was during the apartheid era. And I think that's where the World Bank did, and I'm sorry, Mr. Mantshantsha didn't consider. He's trying to compare some apples to bananas. It doesn't work like that. People are not gigawatts per hour. People are human beings. These are family people. They support extended families in the crisis of unemployment that is worsening in the country. He wants to treat them as just mere gigawatts.
Mr. Mantshantsha?
Sakina, Mr. Vavi is deliberately misquoting me and quoting the World Bank, whom I said nothing about.
But you're relying on it.
Well, I said the audited financial statements of Eskom as at March 2006 gave us the number, not the 66,000. It's nowhere near Eskom's books. The audited Eskom's annual report to March 2017 gives us 47,568 people producing with an installed capacity of 48,000 megawatts in 2017. In 2006, those same people had installed capacity of 40,000 megawatts, producing exactly the same amount in between. Now, the fact of the matter, again, he's deliberately misconstruing things.
Okay.
The street lights are the responsibility of the municipality, not Eskom.
Let's just park it there for the moment. We're going to take a spot break. When we come back, we'll delve into more of these issues that we are tackling this morning. Eskom in 2017 managed to sell only 3% more electricity than it did 12 years ago. So what does that mean in the broader context of what we're grappling with today in terms of salary increments? Stay tuned.